Welcome to Journey to a Better Health. Hey, we have an amazing guest today, man. One of a good friend of mine. We have had many experiences together, and it's just an honor to have this gentleman on this morning. We got Clem Richardson on today, who is the CEO and Executive Director of Mana Behavioral Services. His mission provides substance abuse and mental health to individuals and group counseling. The vision is to see reduction in drug use, mental wellness, and spiritual foundation in hopes to find employment, trade skills, or an entrepreneur and building the community. I mean, this is a powerful individual. Listen, very busy individual as well, but he took the time out to come with us today, man. It's just an honor to welcome everybody. Welcome, Mr. Clem Richardson. Hey,
My
my brother, how
man,
you
my,
doing today?
my man, how you doing, Lorenzo, man? Good to be on the show. I'm glad you invited me, man. How you been doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing well, man. I sit here and I look at you, man, and I can remember the times when we used to just be doing all kinds of things, and
Yes,
today
sir.
we community builders today.
That's
And
right.
one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today, man, because I've had a chance to watch your life,
Mm,
and not only that, but I've also had some experiences with you. And we kind of grew up together and spent a lot of time together, in the streets and all of that.
that's right.
But right now, I mean, I know you're doing all kind of things in the community. But one of the reasons why we're on this episode or this segment, because we actually got a mental health state of emergency, man, that's going on, and it's
Yes, sir.
been going on for quite a while, but it just
Right.
simply hasn't been completely addressed. And I know that you are a professional, and this
Yeah.
is something that you do for your career. And I wanted you to come in and chime in. We had Ed Hennings on the other day, and you know him as well, good friend of yours.
Yep.
And we know that Ed Henning, man,
Smart guy.
ended up in jail for 40 years in prison,
Right.
and he did like 20 years and came home. We talked a little bit about what we see going on in our community, and I wanted to bring a gentleman such as yourself, a pastor, a counselor, and also an author. Man, tell us a little bit more about yourself, man, and
Yeah.
let us get to know you a little bit better and where you at today.
All right. Well, I appreciate that wonderful introductory, man. You're a gentleman and a scholar, and I appreciate you having me on this platform. So I'm born and raised right here in Milwaukee, 606 apartment number 1 West Philippe Street. So raised there. My mother did the best she can do. 7 children, five boys and 2 girls. I'm number 6. So I'm next to my baby brother. So pretty much early on, jumped off the porch, got involved in the game life, as far as gang culture, criminal activity, of selling marijuana, just kind of a little nickel bagging and whatnot. Then from there, by the time I was 15, 16, I had my own powder pack, started doing that. By the time I got out of high school, 17 years old, I got out early and got involved. I wanted to go to the military. I wanted to go to the Air Force, but my environmental factors plays a big important part. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so got involved in the environmental factors, and the social factors is what took me down. What I mean by that is just getting involved, in gangs, selling drugs, in and out of jail, house correction, seeing a lot of violence. And I succumbed to that, and I was incarcerated on the block, I call it, being
Mhm.
hijacked in the mind. A lot of times, brothers go to jail, and I admit that, but I was incarcerated and confined to that 10-block radius, well, north, south, east, and I didn't go too far out of those parameters. So I was in my own mental prison, and so that's where I was at until 1996. Went into a program. After that, I surrendered, and I didn't look back. Only time I looked back was to help others out. So, in short, that was it. That's me.
Well, let's just go back a little bit, because some of those times we talking about, you and I both, we hung out together, we were in the
Yeah,
clubs together, and we did all of that. And at the time when we were going through all of these things,
yeah,
we would see the dysfunction within one another, but we wouldn't know what was going on at the time. And
yeah.
one of my questions with you is in your opinion, now looking back at what we went through and the experience that we seen. But first of all, we saw a lot of mental health scenarios going on back then, but right now, man, I know you see the same thing I see. I mean,
Yeah,
these young men are standing on the corner talking to themselves.
yeah,
Their cognitive skills are way gone. Like they really have some
right,
serious schizophrenic type issues and these
yeah.
prescription drugs and all of that. These things
Hmm.
have really done some serious damage. So what was your experience from now that you look back? What was your experience? What you think that you might have been going through from the trauma that you came out of,
Right.
family life? As you said, you grew up in a single family home, right around the corner from me,
Yeah, right around the corner.
right around
Yeah.
the corner from Ed. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Right. We
And
was in the 53206 area.
yeah, so
So the 532,
what was
yeah,
your
go ahead.
mental health experience? What was your mental health experience that you feel like you experienced?
Yeah, for me personally, experienced depression. A lot of the clinically black men are diagnosed with schizophrenia. You're right on point, and major depressive disorder. So those are some of the key factors, and bipolar. So you see some of those. Our white counterparts are diagnosed with depression, or they looked at it as a health issue. Ours looked at it as a criminal issue.
Mm,
So the key thing there, you see the biases. So for me, yeah, I experienced depression. I experienced the trauma, which we didn't have a word for it back then. We just called it PTSD. And we said that's the things that the men get or women get when they're coming back from the Vietnam War or something like that.
mhm,
And so come to find out, it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, which is trauma. So a lot
right.
of the traumatic events, meaning you see the fire, flood, single parent home, poverty, all that, the trauma of racism, internalized racism, all those different things, systemic racism. So there's many different factors that contributed to my upbringing. So, I don't want to be, I don't want to be broke. I hate poverty. So I got to get my money in some way. I got to get up out of the situation. That's enough. That's stress right there. And so research shows that about 2 million people, 2 million times each, 2 million people times each year, people with serious mental health illnesses are booked in jail. They said, so a lot of that 70% of the youth in the juvenile system was diagnosed with a mental health condition.
Mhm,
And with blacks, 1 in 5 African Americans are 20% more likely to develop a mental health condition. Ours is historical generational trauma, meaning let's go back for a minute, if I may.
oh, absolutely.
So it's our ancestors. So anytime you take someone who's been demonized and told that never amount to nothing, you got Jim Crowism. You take a family and you enslave them. You take their children and you human traffic them. You sell them off and all that. That become normal. And then
Mhm,
when you normalize dysfunction, it impacts the family. Then not only this, from the slavery aspect, let's go to the United States. When we come to the United States, on this side, on this soil, we got hanged. So there's public lynching, which that's called a picnic, where whites would watch us getting picked from a tree, going hang, and it's called pick-a-nicker. And
mhm,
so that's some of the things that we went through. Then not only that, you had the reconstruction of slavery. Then let's move past it. You have Jim Crowism. Now you went on another laws, over 100 years of Jim Crowism, where they had white and black, drinking fountains. You had redlining, where the whites, where blacks was coming from the south. My parents were migrated from the south, coming up to the north. Up here, as far as they can go, was North Avenue. They could not go past even Burlock. They couldn't go past North. So because they had, it was called redlining. So those are some of the issues that we was dealing with. Now that's passed on through our bloodline. If you go to the doctor, Brother Williams, you know that, Lorenzo, they ask you, what are your family health history? And
mhm.
you say, well, my mother got this, or she got any pre-existing disorders. She might have diabetes. She might have high blood pressure. They always ask you, do you know that you might be predisposed to that? And you be like, man, really? That's the same thing was going on we see now with the trauma that's passed on. It's our ancestors. We act out in aggression and trauma because it's passed on through us, through our bloodline. Now, these are some of the 4 key periods of key factors to mental health. And I see you had the state of mental health up here. This is an emergency. We on life support right now, our African people, our black, brown, and yellow people. What I mean
Wow.
by that, these are some of the 4 areas where mental health is brought on. Environmental factors, social factors, DNA, and drug induced.
Mm-hmm.
So the environment, anytime you grow in an environment where there's poverty, there's high crime, there's pollution in there. A lot of our urban areas live by freeways. So we get that negative, that toxin from the freeway. If you live around foundries, you get all that debris and those chemicals we breathe in.
Environmental. Environmental.
Environmental factors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those environmental factors, loud fire alarms, police, shootings. And so you hear all that. That's environmental factors trigger this trauma, mental health. Not only that, social factors. Social factors. How you been socially conditioned? Do you smoke weed with your mom now? Right now, we got mamas and daddies blowing shotguns with their kids. Here you go. Here, go sit down somewhere, boy. Now I gave him a shotgun.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying?
Yeah.
And so go sit down somewhere. Give him a little drink. Put some brandy in his bottle and give him some milk, and he gonna go to sleep. Watch. So these are some of the things that we're dealing with. I even to work with mothers and fathers who's shooting the heroin or the opiates, and they train their kids to hit them with Narcan. So in case they see mama, daddy nodding, hit me with this Narcan, so I can wake up. So they training their kids to be an enabler and training those kids, putting those big expectations on them. So that's social. Now, it could be brought on by drug induced. When a person start drinking and smoking and using, they cover up what they don't want to feel. Drugs and alcohol is only 10% of the problem. That's the symptom. The trauma is the 90%. How I'm going to fend for my kids, how I'm going to take care of my business, how I'm going to do this. Now, you seeing what's going on in the home. You got 81% of those brothers coming from the joint didn't have a father in the home. I know I didn't. I know you didn't at one point in time. You did, but the divorce plays a big important part too. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of times when I work with kids, feel that their parents are divorced or separated, the kid feel like a victim, like you divorced me too. So I got to go to these streets to find some love. So now you got social. If you're okay, if you're letting the kids do drugs in the environment, drinking and doing all this, that plays a big important part. DNA. Not only that, the drugs induced. So the drug induced, now that you're using uppers and downers, which cocaine is an upper. It had you up, we used to call it geek back in the day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
have you up and have you really wired.
Right.
Then you have people do alcohol or an opiate, which is a pill, to bring them down. And
Right.
it brings them down. Now your body is trying to regulate and deal with both of these. And sometimes people overdose by taking too much drugs, and they end up going through withdrawal where they have mood swings and highs and lows. And we might call it bipolar and all that. But no, a lot of times they're detoxing from the drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so what happens with the drugs hijack the person's mind, it deals with the brain area. I'm not getting into the science of the brain. That's what you usually see out here. And people now, they have mental health problems because it's drug induced when you're covering up all those factors. So these are the things that we're seeing right now in our community.
Well, let me ask you this. I'll just go back a little bit because the things that you named, is when I started doing my research, it was really, really interesting. The things that you actually named was on the top three of the list, which was the child abuse,
Mhm.
isolation, and social distancing, and
Yeah.
then it had poverty. Racism was on that list, like the things that you talked about. Now, what was really interesting is when you said that when that people inherit this thing. So it sounds like to me a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, you can inherit if a person's been living in a traumatic state and they begin to have children and they have
Mhm.
nothing but trauma. That trauma can be, that traumatic experience or that traumatic state of mind can be passed on. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir. We passed what's called epigenetics. Well,
Wow.
epigenetics is so. For example, you and your wife have a child, and you in and out of jail. She's pregnant though. She's carrying your seed. She's going through trauma. She's going through the stress. You in and out. Guess where all that stress goes?
Right.
Right into that baby in that womb.
Yeah.
So the baby's birth. We've been birthed into this chaos. Now we ain't got to go back to slavery. Let's go back to the 1960s. So you got to remember, the poverty was socially engineered. The trauma of racism been in place before we even got in this place.
Mm-hmm.
So it's already, our parents come up through the Jim Crowism, through Martin Luther King and all that. My parents go back to World War II. So they've been dealing with it for many years. So nothing new under the sun. The
Right.
key thing is how do we address the state of the emergency of this, and how do we deal with the trauma healing? That's what I focus on. So
Right.
when we gonna get out of the trauma? Anyway, so how? You got those racist laws. So for example, you had Nixon said that we got two issues. We got these hippies and we got these Black Panthers. Let's get rid of both of them. That's back in the 60s, 71. So that's when the prison population started to increase. Take the fathers out of the home. The women can't have no man at the home. You will not get any welfare benefits. So let's remove him out of the home. Anytime you move the man out of the house, you know you're gonna have some issues, because the man would bring order and structure. Now, let's fast forward. So remember, they killed all of our leaders. So now you got Malcolm got killed, King got killed, Robert Kennedy got killed, Kennedy got killed. All these people were assassinated, right? Now you have these, in the 70s, you have the gang lords coming up. You have Jeff Ford, you had Hoover and all of them taking care of our community. They were doing some positive things in our community. Those were the brothers that started that. Hoover them did a lot of different things in the community before they got into the criminal element of it. Right. But they was doing a lot of more good than bad, especially Jeff Ford and all those other brothers. And so when you have the government and all the things that was involved in all this kind of stuff, these brothers were taken out and went to prison. Right. So now you got the 80s coming up in our generation. So now you got Reagan in office, which Reagan them put drugs in the Black community. CIA and Reagan them was involved in that. So now you got the crack cocaine epidemic. Now the prison population really gone. So now they capitalizing off our misery. So now you got more Black men who was incarcerated just getting out from the crack cocaine era, and compared to our white brothers who may use it, and they treat that, society treat that as a public health problem. They treated our crack cocaine issue as a criminalized problem. Let's criminalize that.
What you're saying that the brothers, a lot of the brothers that went in jail during the crack cocaine era are just now coming home.
Some of them just now coming home due to Obama passed a lot of those laws and allows other brothers getting home now, because the same marijuana things that we were selling and using at that time, I got a drug crime for marijuana possession. Mm-hmm. These our white brothers and sisters are making money off of it because they own distilleries now.
Ain't that so?
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in the crack cocaine era, remember, kill them, let them die. They call us super predators.
Yeah, and feeders. They
feeders. Go ahead and put them in prison.
Yeah.
Now with our white brothers and sisters who's using heroin, a lot of people using it. Not all white, not all Black, but I'm just talking specifically with this situation. They're getting treatment. They're getting Narcan. Mm-hmm. They're getting treatment, outpatient treatment. We're getting prison or wait on hold right now. So you see the biases in that. So yes, the state of the emergency is the reason why ours so an emergency is so, because we're living in real time right now. Let me share this with you. With the George Floyd situation. Each day, on average, 30 Black Americans are killed by guns, and more than 100% experience non-fatal injuries. Yeah. Wow. We got more of us dying at our own hands, our own self, because of we've been taught violence. Now we project violence on each other. Mm-hmm. And so with that, when that George Floyd situation happened, that traumatized me. I don't know about you.
Well, I've been traumatized for since we've been teenagers, from Hathaway, Michael Mooney, everything that I've been traumatized for a long time with the devastation that have taken place at the hand of those that's supposed to protect the community and those that's in the community.
Man, when Eric was gone, that was my guy, and so me just seeing him, leaving Bible study, walking in that area. It's just me and Rodney and all the brothers saw them. May he rest in peace too. Rodney
Robinson.
Rodney Rob was my guy. So just seeing that, I'm traumatized. Mooney and all that. They were my dudes. We all went to Ben Franklin together. We all came up together, you know. So
Yeah.
seeing that, even with Mikey Martin and Kenny just getting out of
Absolutely.
Wells, he died
Yeah.
in his sleep. I mean, we just threw him a celebration. So that it's called normalized dysfunction. I normalized it because I was like, man, they gone. Well, let me smoke this, let me drink that. It was
Mhm.
not dealing with my own trauma. So when I saw that a knee on that brother's neck, that just brought back all those memories. And not
Absolutely.
forgetting our brothers, but that just brought back all those memories right there. Like
Well,
I'm not too
let me
far.
ask you this. Let me
Yes,
ask you
sir.
this real quick because I want to touch on a couple things that you said. First thing I want to touch on is I want you to elaborate on the difference. You had touched on the fact that the drugs that they're using now with the prescription drugs, mixing them with the syrup and the Percocets. I tell people all the time, you know, we was in the cocaine era.
Right.
Me, you know, we did our thing.
That's
But
right.
these drugs that these guys is messing with right now, a lot of those drugs ain't no coming back from them drugs because they prescription drugs. And the
Right.
other thing that I wanted to say to you that I want you to touch on so that we can understand, because we've been having a lot of deaths when it comes to fentanyl
Hmm.
and these people on this fentanyl. So just touch on that a little bit so we can understand what are these guys doing that they're dying like this because it's happening at a high rate in our community. So how do we explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So, okay, you gotta go back. So the opiate situation. It's always been a opiate situation in our communities.
Okay.
Back to Lady Singing the Blues, back with Ray Charles, and back in the 1900 early 1900s with the jazz artists using heroin and all that kind of stuff. Now,
Okay.
let's fast forward to the here and now. It wasn't urgent to help us out at the time, so a lot of them died from heroin overdose. So
Absolutely.
let's fast forward. In the here and now, you have the fentanyl. The doctors use it, so they use it for people that may have cancer or
Mhm.
may have HIV or different major surgeries. They use it, but it's regulated by the doctor.
Right.
The street fentanyl, which is not regulated, when you they get it from China, they get it from these cartels or whatnot, or people that's selling it that don't know what they have. This right here is 60 times more potent than regular heroin. 60 times more potent. You get that?
Hmm.
And it's synthetic. Get this. Synthetic means it's fake. It's not even real.
Mm.
And so with that, you get the same effect if you were the person using heroin. So you could just take, if you see this pencil right here,
Yeah.
I could just taste a little powder piece of fentanyl and put it on that, and that's enough to kill you.
Wow.
Just on this pencil right here, just that little bit, will kill you. So
Wow.
um, a lot of times brothers get it, they or whoever may use it, they're going through withdrawal. So in the morning they get, because heroin and the fentanyl is a physical addiction, like alcohol is a physical addiction. The body craves for it. So when they go through the withdrawal, what they do, they need that to get the sick off. Because they get sick. They feel like they have the flu. They got a running nose. They got to go to the bathroom, studying running. And so once they get that hit, they feel fixed. But what's happening, they're seeing that it's an accidental overdose, or they've been using for so long periods of a time, they, just succumb to the drugs.
So are they putting this on? Can this be put on weed and
Yes,
all that? Can we
yes,
die? Can somebody get some fentanyl on some marijuana that's bad and die? And so what? Because I'm hearing that it could be on anything.
yes, sir. It's it's like powder. It's like powder cocaine. It looks like powder cocaine. They can put it in the marijuana. I've heard of one story, 15-year-old was puff pass, and he got to it, and the guys was laughing, and he said, "What y'all talking about?" He hit it, and he died. You got people putting it, they shoot it up, they shoot um, methamphetamines, crystal meth. So that's in our communities. So people, you get more bang for the buck. So with the cocaine, you might spend $25, you might get a $25 hit, a couple few hits. If you're using crystal meth, it's like about $75 worth of cocaine, like a half, 16. So you use that, that right there is enough to, it's more bang for the buck. Keeps them up 2, 3 days at a time or whatnot. But still, again, if you IV use shooting in your veins, it might be in there too. Some people even knowingly see the fentanyl. They don't even want heroin no more, Renzo. They said, give me the Finney. That's what they call it. Give me the Finney.
Mm.
So they go get the Finney and say, I'm just going to shoot a little bit because my guy, Roscoe, I'm just saying the name, took a little bit and he died. I know what to do. And those usually the one that succumb to it. I mean, I get tired of finding dead bodies. At the place I work, I've seen dead bodies before due to heroin or fentanyl overdose. And it's just a sad situation where a person won't reach out and get the help. And that's why this emergency, especially in our community, with men generally, not just in our community, but all communities, the stigma of getting mental health counseling, is not good. Man, you can fight this yourself. Be strong, brother. Don't be no punk. Be hard. You got this. No, I don't got this. I'm
Okay.
dealing with that trauma. I'm dealing with poverty. I'm dealing with the poverty mindset. I'm dealing with I gotta take care of my kids. I gotta leave that generational wealth, and things ain't happening. So a lot of brothers go to something to comfort them, but now they end up developing and have an addiction from the drugs and the alcohol.
So that's really really deep, brother. Like that is amazingly deep. What I know that they have shut down. We don't even have really anywhere for these people to go. Like they shut down the county, the mental health institution. They shut all these different places down. And so just for the record, from my perspective, Journey to a Better Health, we're just trying to address. We're trying to have the conversation because that's one of the issues is we don't want to have a conversation. People have been having the conversation in different areas. You've done some events, but we want to have the conversation. And one of the things is from a professional standpoint. One of the things I want to say, in your opinion, when I've been doing all of this research, one of the things that I have found out, and me and my wife, we've been doing the research. We believe that a lot of people, young people and older people, one of the biggest issues that we see going on with people is we don't have any nutrients in our body. Don't have any
Mhm.
nutrients in our body. When you don't have the right nutrients in your body, you can't think properly. You can't even process properly, along with the other things that you're already talking about. We don't
Right,
even have the proper nutrition that we need in our community.
right.
What's your thought on that?
That's a good thing, Lorenzo. The key thing is once you're right because anytime you use drugs and alcohol, you become vitamin deficient
Efficient.
because it strips all of those nutrients out, and your body starts craving for the alcohol, craving for the cocaine, and physically craving for the heroin, whatever that drug of choice may be.
Right.
So with that, once a person detox, you're right. Through my organization, Man of Behavior Services, we talk about the issues that's going on. Once a person physically withdraw, now they need some treatment. What's the treatment? Some counseling. That's the prescription that they would need. Now, if the person has mental health using they will refer them to a psychiatrist to get their medications because I'm not a psychiatrist. I am a mental health professional and a drug therapist. So being able to do some talk therapy to help them along the journey.
Mhm.
Now, with that, we talk about diet, food diet, and nutrition, and all that plays a bigger part. But when you have a food desert in our communities, when you have a corner store who has hot flamings, juicy juice, all this high sugar, shelf life of some of these string beans been on there since 2010, because a lot of times you have some of these brothers and sisters don't have resources to go to a Whole Food, resources to go get the vegetation that they need. Now, we do have some stores who's opening up now. We got some black grocery stores that's open on Fond du Lac doing some great work over there, fresh vegetables. But you're right, they need diet, a new better diet, and diet nutrition plays a big important part because you eat better. Well, first of all, if you feel better, you're going to do some exercises. Once you do that, you want to start eating better, and there's your journey right there to better health
And
because
that,
we
and
know
that,
we
and
eat.
that's what we're focusing on here is we're trying to
Yeah.
get people to be proactive. You have to cleanse your body out. I tell people all the time, just like you go get an oil change, it's the same people that go to drive to the liquor store, they'll stop at the oil place and get their oil change, but we won't take the time out to cleanse our bodies. And
Right.
we just have to do that. What do you think that needs to happen? I mean, I know no one has all of the answers. I know we don't have the answers, but knowing once we get to understand better where mental health comes from. When I found out that slavery could cause mental health issues, man, I was blown away. And
Yeah.
for me, that just explains so much to me to find out
Hmm.
that those type of scenarios can cause mental health. It just explains everything, and it made me feel like we need to understand the different types of mental health issues. And the other thing we need to understand is it should once we understand it, it gives you more grace, because I had a guy the other day. I stopped and I was getting ready to buy something from someone, and I had a guy aggressively attack me, and it was very clear he was talking to himself. It
Yeah.
was very clear he was very aggressive. He went over by my car where my wife and my kids were,
Mm.
and you know how I am. Uh,
Right.
where we come from, I automatically went into the thought of being positioning myself to defend myself. But what now that I understand a little bit more, it makes me want to have grace for individuals when I see this. But how do we have the grace? How do we not get into the defense mode? And how do we maneuver around these different situations from your perspective? Because we got to
Yeah.
understand what we're looking at, right?
Yeah, we gotta understand that. We gotta once you know the historical context of that, you'll be able to do better. So yes, it's STEM. So Dr. Joy DeGruy said this. She's going to be here, I believe, this week. This is one of the scholars that I kind of gleaned from. She said it's PTSD, post traumatic slave syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
She said that the this is it is a condition that exists as a consequence of a multi-generational oppression of Africans and their descendants, resulting from centuries of chattel slavery, a form of slavery which has predicted on the belief that African Americans were inherently and genetically inferior to whites.
Mm-hmm.
So today it's still dealing with this. So how do we work with these people? Now you got to remember, you said a lot of them on the streets and all that because thanks to Reagan and a lot of those those policies that was punitive, they come after social service programs back in the 80s and 90s. He said cut those programs out. So what they did, they cut a lot of the programs out of the behavioral health division, and because of the funding and resources. So a lot of people you see Vietnam War veterans walking around, you see silver alerts, you see, have you seen little little Johnny, or have you seen little Roof? So because of those programs been cut. Now, once we see it, we do not be judgmental because in the Bible there was people who had mental health issues. That one man that had gashing of teeth, and he was a son who had some issues. He was going through seizures, and he was couldn't have convulsion. Jesus went over there and touched out and healed that person, right? And so with that, we see that we had people who had leprosy, and so they would anytime that they would walk and they would say, I'm unclean, unclean," and so they had to announce that before people would come around them. So now we know that and have the science behind it, and have the wisdom behind it. We pray for those brothers and sisters, and so you see them talking. Usually, person with schizophrenia is not going to really hurt you, not unless they're hearing. They usually don't. Some of them hear the auditory hallucinations, meaning they hear it auditory inside their voice, inside their head.
Mm-hmm.
Where some may talk out loud. And so I'm not gonna be afraid of them. It's just God
I
bless
think
you.
I think we
God bless
all
you.
I think we all do that sometimes. Talk out loud. Is
Oh
that
yeah, yeah. I talk out loud a lot myself. My wife, who you talking to? So I'm talking to myself.
talking to myself? so so
So yeah, it plays
so
a
this
big
stuff
important
this stuff
part, man.
this stuff is happening with our kids. I mean, we seen it in our youth inside of our homes. So if we got this situation in our homes, Dr. Mark Fossey's coming on as well. We got a couple of people. Kia Spell, she's coming on. And then we got Dr. Tipton that's talking about these issues. But from your opinion, we got these things going on with our children in our homes. I'm seeing some things going on very close to home, actually. And a lot of these people, they're just saying, hey, well, you're not gonna do right, then you ain't gonna stay here. You just get on out of here. And then people just putting people out because they don't know how to deal with it. I mean,
Right.
you got to protect yourself, right? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, you're right. You reach out. That's the problem. We suffer in silence too much, Lorenzo. And so there's resources that's out there. And so the family, if you have someone in the home who's dealing with mental health, there's Mental Health of America. There's other programs that's available that's out there. They got substance abuse issues or whatnot. I mean, you can call 211. So there's a lot of resources available at our disposal. Do we go get the resources? A lot of times, especially in some black families, not all, is don't tell these white people my business. Don't tell nobody my business in this house. What happens in this house stays in this house. And so when you do that, we suffer in silence and don't come get the resources until it's way out of control. So we got to be more proactive instead of being reactive. With the help, since we know what's happening. With the children, the secondary trauma is worse than the person that experiencing the trauma. What I mean by that is a person just observing, seeing mom getting hit, seeing they driving recklessly out here and all that kind of stuff. Seeing that's cool, man. Let me get out here and baseline. Let me get out here. I'm a boss. Let me move. Let me baseline and jig around here. And so that's what the young people is on. Baseline. Let me go around side and zoom and jig and let me go hustle right quick. Let me go sell this product. So you see that with that. That's the culture of what's happening. But unfortunately, it's costing their lives. It's costing their lives. So with that, you need to reach out. No matter how it hurt, if any one of you suffering, if you have a children who's suffering out there, reach out. We got Running Rebels. We got my organization that can work with youth or men that's out here. And so we kind of just go through there. As long as you got insurance or private pay, we'll definitely work with you.
So what is so you said the Running Rebels, name you gave I called you about a crisis that I had with a gentleman the other day, and you said a number that a person can call right out of. It's going to be put up. I'm going to put it up, but was it two something you said?
211.
211. And what happens at 211 when they call that number?
They ask for what they're looking for, whether it's counseling, mental health, substance abuse, housing, furniture. They'll call, and 211 will connect them with all the resources in Milwaukee, all of them. So
Wow.
we ain't got to name them all, but there's a lot of resources out here. That's an excuse. When a person said, "Well, I don't know if I can get the help. There's no help out here." There's help out here. Like this one guy said, he said, "I don't got a drinking problem." He said, "But my nagging wife think I got a drinking problem." You got a drinking problem if your wife said it.
That's right.
Because
And
she already know your secrets.
and a lot of that stuff destroy your families.
Yes, it
Uh,
does.
yeah, man, Clem Richardson, man, we really appreciate it. Pastor, I apologize, Pastor. Now, Pastor Richardson, where's your church located?
My church we're located on. Oh, that's a good question. Right off of 76 in Townsend.
Okay,
So it's 7607 West Townsend Street.
okay. How can a person
Services at
how can a person reach out to you? I mean, to your agency, to Manna.
Managed Behavior Services. They can
Yeah.
call me at 414-334-7022. You can reach out there and we see can we help you. If we can't, we definitely point you in the right direction.
Wow. Well, pastor, author, counselor. I watched you come from a long way, man, and I watched you do some amazing things. Have an amazing wife, very anointed, amazing wife, and you've
Thank
made some. You have a. I've watched you, and I'm gonna. People will see some of this, but you have a nice congregation. You help men to grow. You have evolved into a very distinguished gentleman, and it's an honor
you.
and
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to know and meet you, have met you in my life and have you in my life. You've actually been there for me as well many a times, and I really appreciate you. And
Appreciate you.
thank you for coming on to Journey to a Better Health, talking about this subject matter. And
Yes.
we're gonna have you back.
All right, appreciate that, Lorenzo. Thanks everybody for listening. Peace out.
Stay tuned. Stay on hold, Pastor Richardson, for a second. Thank you all for coming on Journey to a Better Health, watching this amazing gentleman come and share with us today. And we just asking is that everybody just pay attention, take notes, and realize that you don't have to quit. You can keep going. And we're gonna have more people on here talking about this issue, and we're gonna grow from this. We don't have all the answers, but we just addressing the subject matter so that we can get a better understanding of which direction we need to go. All right, everybody. God bless.